Hello, I'm Carl Baldassarre, and for this episode, I'm going to describe 7 habits of professional musicians and of successful people. Now, these are things that I have observed in both in life in music and in business, and they're not rocket science, but it's actually nice to have them on kind of one list and one sheet of paper to think about. So let's look at this. Number 1, great training. Now, I'm going to make the assumption that skill is necessary to be a professional musician or a professional in general. But it may be necessary, but it's not sufficient. There's plenty of ridiculously skilled people that actually have not become professional or crossed over into a profession. So it's not just skill alone. So let's talk about some of the other habits that I see successful people using. I will say, though, as it relates to skill, that great training is a requirement, and I see that as a marker for people that are really professional. It could be training that's part of either in a school or having some form of tutelage, and of course, experience is the greatest teacher of all. But really, you don't find even prodigies without having teachers. The most talented people get training and get refinement in their skill and their craft. So great teaching is an important part for everybody who is professional. Number 2, dependability. The greatest ability you can have is dependability. And when you say yes, that's it. It's yes. You have to honor your commitments to be considered a professional and to get that call back. And as it relates to professional musicians, there's an interesting mentality with professional musicians. It's the show must go on. And professionals do that. And the difference between amateurs and professionals is that professionals find a way to separate things that might be in their personal life, even some tragedies and horrible things. They will find a way to honor their commitments, and the show must go on. Another important aspect of dependability is coming prepared for whatever engagement you have. You gotta want to have the proper equipment. If you're a musician, you want to have your music, you want to have accessories, whatever. Don't show up and be looking for other people to supply you. That's total amateur, and you will not really be able to get a call back if you do that. Additionally, knowing more than your parts. You have to know your parts, that's a requirement, but the best professionals really know the entire components of what's going on. So if you're learning a part on guitar and you're going to a session, it's really important that you know about the whole song. And the really professional people know about the songwriter. They'll know about the meaning of the song. They'll look at the lyrics. The more you bring, the more professional you are. It may seem simple to say that just calling people back as a natural courtesy is something that makes people professional, but it is. So calling them back, responding through social media, that's really critical. Don't leave people hanging, because people really need to fill gaps. And so you might be the person they're calling, and it's really important that you get back to them. So don't forget to respond back to any invitation for work. And lastly, I have to mention it, but sobriety is a big part of dependability. So you just have to think about that on your own, but really sobriety is an absolute no-go zone. You have to be sober to be professional. The third topic of the habits that I see are organization and time management. You have to be on time, prepared, equipped, and ready to work. I remember Leon Fleischer at a master class once said to one of the pupils, when he wasn't ready to jump to bar 133, he wrapped his baton on the music stand. He says, "You want the work? You have to be ready." And that really stuck with me. As it relates to time management, I think of the Vince Lombardi quote. He said, "I'd rather be an hour early than a minute late." And don't forget, if you're late or running close to being late, 2 people are stressing out, the person that hired you and you. And you can't prepare and perform your best if your heart rate's up way too high. So I'd rather be an hour early than a minute late. I find that professional people, in terms of their organization, they really have an attention to detail. They either keep to-do lists on paper, on their phone, or they have it in their mind. They have a capacity to maintain all the details, and they're able to check through their checklists, and they just don't leave loose ends open. They just get things done. One thing I find with professionals is that they know the difference between practice and rehearsals. Practice are what you do on your own, and rehearsals are what you do as a group or preparing for a show. So really, the amateurs are the ones that show up and want to practice their part in a rehearsal. So there's a big difference thinking between the difference of practice and rehearsal. Number 4 on my list of successful habits is be joyous. Come to your work with a joyful, collaborative mentality. Do you want to live long and prosper? Just be joyful. There are two types of people in the world. There's energy givers and there's energy takers. And you want to be low maintenance. You don't want to be an energy taker. You want to be an energy giver. So you don't want to cause stress on your fellow musicians, your colleagues, the people that's hiring you. You just want to be joyful, have a joyful spirit, and be collaborative in your thinking. Be pleasant and not a pain in the arse, and be a good hang socially. Sometimes you're actually not going to be working while you're working. You're just going to be hanging out with people. And it's important just to be a good conversationalist, someone who's easy to talk to, someone who's not difficult. And that's just an important skill, is to learn how to be a good hang. And lastly, I always like to say, and what I try to do, is to leave people better than I found them. That's just my mindset, and I try to do that. Number 5 is having a collaborative mentality. And that really means, what can I do to make other people shine? So if I'm a musician and someone else is taking a solo, what can I do to make that musician fill with joy and have them really, really bloom during their solo? What can I do in a recording session to make other people shine? Really, that's the collaborative mentality. It's not all about you. It's not about you demonstrating your resume on your instrument. It really is about being part of a collaboration. That's what music is. Number 6, be adaptive. Things never go as planned. Poop will happen, and you have to be ready to think on your feet and just overcome the difficulties. I remember a story by Dave Brubeck, the great jazz pianist, and he was preparing for a full stadium, a concert, many, many thousands of people, and the stagehands were rushing around, and he's ready to go out on stage. They had everything else all set, but they forgot to put the pedals on the piano. And he walks out on stage to a standing applause, ready to hear his jazz ensemble, and he turned to the musicians in his band and he said, "No ballads tonight." And that's how you think on your feet. That's the mentality you have to do. I mean, there was no monitors at Woodstock. You just have to go on, and you have to just deal with whatever situation you might encounter. Kind of learn to expect the unexpected. And professional people really do that. They're really good at kind of pivoting and adapting. Part of being adaptive is your ability to read the room. And what I mean by that is, you certainly want to be able to read the audience. You know, if you're performing and your set is maybe not going as planned and you have more repertoire, try to think about what kind of repertoire is going to work for that given audience. And for your fellow musicians, kind of read what they need. About customers, if you're selling merchandise, or even the person who hired you. Read the room and really be an outside thinker, not an inside thinker. Make sure that your attention is on other people. And just adapt to every circumstance and every organic environment that you're in. And then also learn from your mistakes. You know, there are ones that are within your control, which you can clean up on your next rehearsal, and there are those things that are out of your control. You just have to learn how to get over difficulties, and that comes with experience. But professionals do that so well. Number 7, be a professional, entertaining musician. Professionals know how to entertain. Now, there's the difference between being a musician and an entertaining musician. And I've always appreciated the entertaining musician. My view is that when you are on stage, your job is to make people forget about their job. And I love watching pros work, man. When they get on stage, no matter what their mindset is or whatever, it's like a switch is thrown and they light up and they play and they're projecting energy and smiling. And that's kind of what a professional performer does. And those are the people that get called back for more gigs. Some of the attributes that I see in professionals in terms of how they relate to an audience and part of performing is that there's always eye contact. Because people in the audience not only want to forget about, whatever troubles they have, they're there to be entertained. And when you look at one audience member, they feel this connection and it stays with them forever. And they wind up becoming, they turn from customers to fans when you do that. And I can tell you, smiling is so powerful. I could do a whole episode on smiling, but I've made more money smiling than by any degree or any other thing I've ever achieved in my life. A smile is powerful. It's the best marketing tool that you have. Audiences love it. Probably the greatest compliment I can have is when people come up to me after a show and they say, "Are you really having as much fun as it looks?" That's great, because I am having that much fun. And I learn how to kind of shut off, not the things that are going wrong, and really try to be joyful when I'm playing. The other aspect of performing and entertaining is also you're entertaining your fellow musicians, and you also want to look and be alert with the fellow musicians, because if there's going to be a sudden turn, nobody can signal that to you if you're playing with your head down and you're focused in your own little world. So it really is about contact with the audience and your fellow musicians. Absolutely a signature trait of professionals. Here's a bonus habit for you. It's about personal presentation and attire. And there's a school of thought out there that as a musician, you want to dress at least as well as your audience. So that means if you're playing at a beach party or what have you, if you want to break out the Hawaiian shirt, fine. But you want to dress at least as well as your audience. It's a sign of respect. Now for me, I have a different standard for myself. I want to bring the best version of me to every performance. And I have my own sense of what makes me feel good. And I believe that if I look good and I'm happy with how I look, if I feel beautiful, I'll play beautifully. So I try to bring everything I have to every performance in terms of just how I'm presented. And I want to feel good about myself, because I really get excited to play for people when I'm feeling really good about myself. I'm Carl Baldassarre, and I hope you enjoyed this list of 7 habits, actually 8, of professional musicians and successful people. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share, and give me a comment on this list and let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to cover. Thank you again.